Hello and a very warm welcome indeed to Quadriga, coming to you from the heart of Berlin. And this week the focus is on German Chancellor Angela Merkel, who truly has her back to the wall. Everyone is asking how long can Europe's longest-serving leader cling onto office amid the latest ructions over Germany's and Europe's immigration policy. Merkel is facing an ultimatum from her powerful interior minister. Horst Seehofer says bring back a European solution from the Brussels summit at the end of the month, or else he will go it alone and issue a unilateral order for police to start turning away refugees from Germany's borders. So our question here on Quadriga, Germany's refugee row, can Merkel survive? And to discuss that question, I'm joined in the studio by three journalists who have all been following this story closely. Beginning with Pascal Thibaut, Berlin correspondent for Radio France Internationale. Pascal believes that Merkel's crisis will only bring France and Germany closer together. The struggling Chancellor is dependent on support from Paris. Also with us is Alan Posener, regular columnist for the Berlin daily Die Welt, who says once again Merkel has defeated an opponent by giving him just enough rope to hang himself with. Horst Seehofer talked the talk but couldn't walk the walk. And a very warm welcome too to Anna Sauerbrey, head of the opinion section at another Berlin paper, Der Tagesspiegel. Anna believes Angela Merkel is a survivor, but she is now at the mercy of Europe's populists. And Anna, let me begin with you. It's been described as the biggest crisis of the Merkel years. That is surely no exaggeration.
No, it is not. It is a very deep crisis, though we have talked about deep crises for Merkel quite a bit. And she has always survived this show. And I think she still has a chance to get out of this one decently. I think there is a possibility for compromise. But yet both Merkel and Seehofer are in it with all they have, with their very causes of political existence. So I think it is very
Two
severe.
giants in the late stages of their political careers.
Yes.
Alan, you write for Die Welt newspaper, as I've said, as a columnist, but you've already had a piece, you've also had a piece in The Guardian in the UK this week, saying no one can deny that Angela Merkel's coalition is in trouble. How deep is the trouble?
Well, it is in trouble, but I don't think the trouble is as deep as it's made out to be. I think you could say in a way that Seehofer and Merkel are playing good cop, bad cop, or bad cop, good cop, Merkel being the good cop, Seehofer being the bad cop, but essentially pulling on the same rope, if you see what I mean. Because, well, look, firstly, talking about rope, Seehofer gave Merkel an ultimatum to come round to his position, or he would impose border controls unilaterally by last Monday. Monday came and went, and nothing happened, except that Seehofer extended his ultimatum to two weeks so Merkel could get her...
Lost the courage of his convictions.
He's already climbed down, and he hasn't really said, if you don't get what I want, I will do this.
But he has said he will be back.
Well, people say that, don't they? He's climbed down. He's proved that he's really just a cuddly teddy bear and not a roaring lion.
Horst Seehofer, a cuddly teddy bear.
Yeah, he has that kind of look, doesn't he? This sort of shambling.
Pascal Thibaut, is this a crisis about Angela Merkel's coalition government? Is it a crisis about Angela Merkel, or is it a crisis about the future of Europe?
Both, I think, yeah. There is a crisis in this coalition. I think this coalition is a crisis since its birth. That's my impression, because it was so difficult, and it's quite obvious that they are going, I think, to struggle during 4 years if this government lasts for 4 years. And it's a crisis, of course, in Europe, because it's probably it's the most important crisis since the financial and economical crisis at the end of the last decade. And this time the victim could possibly be Merkel. We will see if it's possible for her. It's incredible how much she has to solve in the next week or in the next 10 days if she will find a compromise with some partners. But the situation is worse than it was with populist parties in some governments in Europe. So it's almost an impossible mission.
Mission impossible. You said this week you broke a lance for Angela Merkel, Anna, and you said she deserves our respect. Just explain a little bit more why she deserves our respect.
I think the CSU is finally giving in to being a populist party, or at least performing populist strategies, and that is pretending there still is a crisis and pretending there still is an enormous pressure of time.
There is a crisis.
What crisis? I mean, the numbers
It's a political crisis.
Yes, now, but it's an artificial crisis because they have created it. Because the numbers of asylum seekers have been going down with the Turkey deal and other measures, strengthening Frontex in the Mediterranean, working with the Libyan Coast Guard. The refugees are actually pushed back behind the Mediterranean. So Merkel has created time to discuss and find a strategy with the European partners. It's going to take time. And now she's in a very bad position because now she has to find a solution within 2 weeks. And I like the idea of them playing good cop, bad cop, but I think it's rather hurting her position to discuss and negotiate with the European partners, which are very difficult, as we know.
You don't buy this, Alan?
Well, no, I think, you know, if Merkel goes to some European partners, she doesn't have to go to them all because, you know, the Visegrad states basically aren't part of the equation. They're not taking any refugees anyway. They also don't have any outside borders. So she has to basically deal with Austria, Italy, France, Belgium, and so on. And she has an ally in Macron, and she has allies in Belgium and Holland. And she can say to the Italians, look, I've got this fiery dragon breathing down my neck. Help me. And then they'll say, OK, how much are you going to pay? And she'll fork up in some way.
Yeah, but she'll have to pay more because she's under enormous time pressure. And we see that now with Macron and the common European budget, that maybe she has to put in some more. So he helps her keep the migrants out.
Well, when you say payments, cash payments, are we talking about payments from made by Germany or payments from European Union funds?
No, I mean the payments not in a literal sense. When she comes to terms with Italy or somebody else about taking the migrants back, there might be payments involved of helping.
People are beginning to talk about this now. Yeah?
Yes,
they're comparing it with.
I think she also said in the press conference with Macron on Tuesday, she spoke in a very light way about financial compensations for a country like Italy, because we heard in the meantime that the interim minister in Italy, Salvini, doesn't want his migrants back. So maybe the way to let him accept them is to give him some money. And it could be probably a way on Sunday in Brussels for Merkel to achieve a compromise with Italy and other countries.
OK, things have now certainly come to a head, but the animosity between Angela Merkel and her Interior Minister Horst Seehofer that we've been talking about goes back a long way. Let's just get a glimpse of how acrimonious it has been.
The rift between Angela Merkel and Horst Seehofer began to develop in 2015 when the Merkel government opened Germany's borders to 1 million refugees.
We've done so much, we can do this.
This is a huge undertaking, which has now been exacerbated by this decision. News spreads quickly around the world.
We can do this.
I can only repeat, the system is collapsing.
The dispute has now escalated, with Seehofer's demand to turn refugees away.
We think that, as a country at the heart of Europe, turning people back at our borders without consultation could lead to negative domino effects that could hurt Germany.
I say that if there are no such effects, I am determined that migrants must be turned back at our borders.
What does Horst Seehofer really want? Stricter asylum laws or to topple the Chancellor?
Stricter asylum laws or toppling the Chancellor, Alan? What does Horst Seehofer really want?
Neither nor.
Neither nor?
No, look, he says, in your report says it's about turning migrants back at the border. First, it's not. It's about turning certain groups of migrants back. Those who have applied for asylum in Germany have been turned down, A, and those who have been registered in other countries. Both are, as we speak, being turned back already and have been turned back for a long time. this year alone sent back to Tyrol in Austria, the province of Tyrolia, 700 people who fall into this category. We send back Albanians by the thousands because they don't have enough money with them, or because their passport is not biometrically aligned with European law. So this happens all the time. So Seehofer is saying, I demand this. It's happening. And it's going to go on happening. It's like when at the height of the refugee crisis, when 1 million came in, he said, I demand an upper limit of 200,000 refugees. We now don't even have 200,000 refugees coming every year. So he has this big sort of, I'm demanding this, but actually he's more or less a cuddly bear who, you know, his bark is much, much worse than his bite.
Pascal, cuddly bear he may or may not be, but he has delivered an ultimatum to the German Chancellor. What's going on here? That a minister, albeit a senior minister, is putting the gun to the head of the German Chancellor and being quoted as saying, I can't work with that woman any longer. What is going on?
Yeah, it's quite incredible, yeah, especially the German politics. I mean, I would maybe we could hear such remarks maybe in other countries which are not so stable like Germany. So it's a bit surprising for somebody coming from France. But I think it shows also how difficult the relations is. But we speak also about symbols. I think we have already heard about the figures. I think Seehofer needs to show a stronger politics for migration, but I think there is a lot of symbolic in his politics, and also because of the situation in Bavaria, because of the elections in October, and because of the concurrence of the right-wing party Alternative für Deutschland. Mm-hmm. So I think quite a lot of his politics is also a show, but of course for the image of this government, it's disastrous.
You know, if this were soccer, people are talking about soccer a lot these days, people would be saying it's a grudge match. Horst Seehofer clearly bears a grudge against Angela Merkel from the way she behaved towards him and with him in 2015. Well, it's not just the cuddly bear theory.
No, lots of men bear grudges against Angela Merkel, and up till now, she's managed to see off every single one of them. There was an Italian cowboy western movie which was called in German Leichen pflastern seinen Weg, bodies plaster his path. That's Merkel, and Seehofer is going to be the next. Come on, he's not going to get what he wants.
Anna, I can hear you drawing breath.
He's not the only one. I wouldn't just cut it down to the Merkel-Seehofer antagonism. It's the whole party that's behind Seehofer, and other people in the party like Markus Söder, whom he lost to, and Alexander Dobrindt, he's a biter, and they are pushing him. They are pushing the poor cuddly bear to go after Merkel, and sitting in Bavaria and Munich and laughing their heads off.
So it's a process of generational change in conservative politics in Germany. And for my money, it's a process, there's a new political culture emerging on the conservative side of German politics.
Yeah, I mean, you can see it in the conservatives in Bavaria, but there's also groups within the Christian Democratic Union who are pushing for more conservative politics. And of course, this has something to do with the right-wing party we have in the Bundestag. They are very determined, particularly Dobrindt and others, to win back those votes from the AfD. And they quote Strauss all the time. There should not be
Franz Josef Strauss, former Bavarian leader,
there should not be a party right of the Christian Democratic Union or its Bavarian branch, and that's what they are going after. And I think they really believe that. I think these voters belong to them, and they want them back. And of course, there's something good in it.
They've called for a conservative revolution.
Yes, some have, and I don't think the group. I don't know for Bavaria, but within the Christian Democratic Union, I think this is a minority group. They're not that large. And right now, the party is still behind Angela Merkel, as we have seen in the meetings of the caucus at the Bundestag and other meetings. They're still backing her. But yes, there is the process of change, and we see the faces that are coming up, like Jens Spahn, for example, who do want another
The angry young man of Conservative politics at the moment, 37 years old, I think, is he? Yeah. Health Minister, yeah. Talked about as possible Chancellor material in the future. Come on. Pascal, are the right-wing populists taking over in Europe? They sense that they've got the wind at their backs now.
Yeah, that's true. We can see it in several countries. In Germany, they are in the parliament, as we have already heard. They take part at the government in Austria, in Italy, and they have also had some successes in other countries. So it's also a sign that probably the European idea is not convincing the people, and that national solutions are for more people in Europe the better way to solve problems. I think it's an error, of course, but that's a very problematic solution, and of course it's a big responsibility for our leaders to show it is possible to find a European solution. But for the migration topic, it is almost impossible. I mean, we have these big differences between the Western European countries and the Eastern European countries, and we have also the difficulties, especially with Italy, with the new government, with the right-wing government, not willing to accept, for example, the migrants, which, because of the Dublin Agreement, should go back to Italy. So it's the national card, if we can use this expression, plays a very great role nowadays in
Absolutely. I wonder, Alan, what the new right want. I wrote down a quote from the CSU's Markus Söder. We've been talking about Markus Söder from Bavaria, Bavarian Conservative. He called this week he described this as the end of the era of orderly multilateralism. Translated, and this is not just semantics, that seems to mean to me that what he is propagating is the beginning of an era of unordinary, unorderly unilateralism. That is a whole sea change. That is a move away from the post-war consensus, liberal, values-based politics.
What I think he meant, though with Söder it's difficult to say, what I think he meant was within Europe, the idea that Europe moves, so to speak, in lockstep. It's obvious that that's not the case. No one wants to join the Eurozone anymore, for instance, because they've seen what happened to Greece, and the Hungarians are leading a revolt against migration, with the Visegrad group of 4 who are meeting today, I think, with the Austrians, by the way, to combine their policies, to coordinate their anti-immigration policies. And on the other hand, there's the, if you will, old EU, but there are again some differences. So what what we're seeing is that instead of the EU deciding something together, you have different groups within the EU deciding things. That is not disorderly unilateralism. That is slightly disorderly 4, 5, 6 speed Europe, but it's still possible. I mean, that's the way it goes. You're not going to get a united Europe the way it was before we enlarged to the east. That's not going to happen.
Donald Trump waded into the debate this week. What did you make of that, Hannah?
Well, you could see it as an attempt to destabilize Germany and overthrow Angela Merkel. I don't think it was that. He tweeted, and I think it was largely the major reason was the internal problems he has with a huge backlash against the policies of separating families at the Mexican border. So he has done it before. He has often pointed to Europe as for the illustration of failed migration policies. He has done that pointing to Sweden. He has done it pointing to Germany before. And I think that's just covering his hard line, which he has now.
But there are serious voices here in Europe who are saying, look, we've got this growing front of far-right populist opinion across Europe. And at one end, you've got Vladimir Putin. At the other end, you've got Donald Trump. Yes. And that looks like a threatening scenario for lily-livered liberals.
Yes, it is. And I mean, the American ambassador to Germany has said he wants to promote conservative movements in Germany and has pointed to Kurz, but it was very obvious from his wording that he was meaning the right-wing populists too. So this is, there is an alignment between those groups. I just don't think that's what Trump hinted at with his tweet.
Okay. Well, earlier this week, French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Angela Merkel met for talks in the German government guest house north of Berlin. Commentators say that the two leaders are more dependent on each other than ever before. Macron needs Merkel for his ambitious plans to press ahead with a more federal Europe. Merkel needs Macron to come up with a pan-European migration solution. Pascal, do you still trust in the Merkel-Macron axis, that the tandem, that they will, in effect, save the liberal Europe?
France and Germany are two countries among 27 or 28 or 19 for the Eurozone. So it's much more difficult than it was in the past for these two to impose compromises. And it's more difficult not only because of the number of the member states, but also because of the divisions we have already talked about in the European Union and in the Eurozone. But if there are no, if Macron and Merkel don't make proposals, who will make them? So I think what they achieved in Meseberg is a compromise, more Eurozone measures, especially with the budget for this zone. It was a very important symbol or measure for Macron.
It's not going to be a huge budget.
Yeah, we don't know exactly, but but we see, and that's why also they didn't say how much this budget will be, because it's there's still difficult to find a compromise between France and Germany. And nowadays, because of the migration problem, Merkel needs more than in the past the support of France. We have a situation between the two countries which is absolutely the contrary than it was 15 months ago, with a weak French partner, with François Hollande, with the situation in which it was impossible, more or less, to have common proposals. And now we have Macron becoming more or less the leader of the integrated Europe, and Merkel, who is the weak partner, who need nowadays the support of France.
Anna, what's going to happen next in German politics? We've got a pretty sort of strict timetable now. We've got the Brussels summit coming up, and that's going to... It's a make or break kind of a summit. That's at least what is being suggested. What happens next?
I don't know where Seehofer and his pals in Bavaria are heading for. I don't know how crazy they are, whether they really want to push it to the limit.
Do they want Merkel out, and do they have an alternative?
I think there will be a compromise. I think he will accept what she negotiates bilaterally with Italy, hopefully, and others. So both get what they want. He will be able to turn away more people at the border. She will have a European solution. And I think then they will try to move on.
Alan?
The next crisis.
Exactly. He, as I say, Seehofer's already lost. It's just a question of saving face. By the way, if you saw them both yesterday, there was this celebration of or anniversary of it was all about refugees, German refugees from the east and so on. And Merkel,
they sat uncomfortably next to each other. I noticed.
But Merkel got enormous applause from the assembled political and cultural elite of Germany, and she has this behind her back. And Seehofer is an outsider, and he'll have to climb down.
Pascal?
Yeah, I think also...
Looking into the crystal ball?
We will see if Seehofer is able to survive politically as a minister after the Bavarian elections. Maybe he has to resign or not, but I think also he's more or less, a symbolic personality, but I think he's already more or less an older man, and I think probably he will sometime leave the political scene in Berlin, and maybe we'll have more time to play with little strains in in his house at home.
Another film title for Seehofer, The Walking Dead.
I noticed, Alan, that you talked in the Guardian item that I quoted earlier. You talked about what there has been in Germany. You described as a Wagnerian Götterdämmerung frenzy this week. Yeah, you're sticking by that.
Yeah, I'm sticking by because I mean, look, we journalists, we love sort of to call out the end of the world and great crisis and so on. Every time this happens, we're sort of jumping on it. Now is finally the end, and of course, someday it is going to be the end of Merkel. I mean, she isn't going to reign forever, long to reign over us. That's the British national anthem. That's not ours. But come on, it's not today, it's not tomorrow.
You're all three so sane and sensible. I'm not so sure. We shall see. Anyway, we talked about the British there. Stay calm, carry on. That seems to be the message from Quadriga this week. We've been discussing Germany's refugee row. Can Merkel survive? Bye-bye. Tschüss.